Hey, what's up there, Hexers? This is Function here, bringing you the third installment of What's the Pick? Today's scenario is, what's the best reset button? Alright, let's jump right in. The first card we're going to be looking at today is Extinction. It's a familiar one, I've talked about it before, and it's definitely a good one. It's a 5-cost, double blood threshold basic action that reads Destroy All Troops. Just to clarify, that kills all of your opponent's troops, as well as all of your own. But what's it up against? Well, we're pitting it against Judgement, which is a 6-cost triple diamond threshold basic action that reads Destroy all cards with cost less than the highest cost among cards you control. Well, before we compare them, let's talk about what kind of situation you want to be playing these cards in. Generally, you want to be playing a sweeper or reset button card like one of these in a slower, kind of more control-based deck. One where maybe your opponent has played a bunch of cards over the course of the first few turns of the game. Maybe they have a bunch of troops or artifacts in play or something like that. You play one of these and all of a sudden you're kind of bringing it all back to zero. You're wiping the slate clean, and hopefully you have the advantage because you've played fewer cards in your from your hand, or maybe in the case of Extinction you've played some artifacts, meanwhile your opponent's only played troops. So you're playing one of these cards and you're coming out with an advantage. What's the drawback of playing these cards though? Well, first off, you usually kind of have to leave yourself open in the early turns of the game. You might be taking a lot of damage. Another big one though is that say you're playing Extinction on turn 5, you just got your 5th resource and you're using all of them your entire turn to play Extinction. Now, unless you have other constants or artifacts in play, you're not really doing much else that turn. Your opponent is the one who has the first chance to act. Maybe you've killed a bunch of their troops, but there also is a chance that they might be holding a big one in their hand. So they play one of theirs, and now the pressure's on you now to do something. So when you're playing a card like either of these, you always want to keep in mind, what am I going to do after I play one of these cards? You know what? Judgment kind of answers that question. And the reason is it lets you keep some of your own cards in play. We'll read it one more time. It's destroy all cards with cost less than the highest cost among cards you control. So if you have a 5-cost troop or maybe 2 4-cost artifacts, something like that, it's going to keep the highest cost one in play. If you control multiple at that cost, it's going to keep all of them in play. The drawback is if you have a 5-cost card and your opponent does too, well, both of those are going to stay in play, but there's definitely potential to kill all of your opponent's cards, meanwhile keeping your own. That's another thing we want to look at Judgment, is it says destroy all cards, not just destroy all troops like Extinction does. It's going to kill constants, artifacts, and troops. That's definitely a big thing to keep in mind. Another one is say you have your 5-cost troop, right? You sweep the board with Judgment, leaving nothing in play on your opponent's side. Well, the turn you do that, you're probably also going to be able to attack with the troop that you had. So that's definitely kind of another angle to attack from. It's leaving your opponent open, and unless they're playing a bunch of speedy guys that can attack the turn they come into play, they might be out of the game for 2 turns or so before they're able to do much themselves. You know what though? That's also kind of a drawback in Judgment's case. So, say you have that 5-cost troop, the one you're setting up the attack for, and then you play Judgment, but you've also got like a 1-cost constant or something like that in play. Well, if you play Judgment and your opponent destroys your troop in response, now the highest cost card you control when Judgment resolves is only 1. It's not going to really destroy anything unless somebody has a bunch of 0-cost things in play. And on that note, what does Judgment do if you don't have anything in play? I don't think it does anything. The way I read it is if I don't have anything in play and then I play Judgment, well, the highest cost card I control is 0, meaning there's not going to be anything below that. Judgment's not going to do anything. That's definitely a really big drawback against it. Another one is its cost. The difference between 5 and 6 is actually pretty big. Just because it costs 1 more doesn't mean you're going to be able to play it on turn 6. You might not be able to play this until 2 or 3 turns later than you would normally be able to play Extinction. I don't really hold the threshold difference against Judgment. A triple threshold versus a double isn't all that big, especially by the time you're playing a card that costs 6 resources. You're probably going to have the triple threshold even if you're kind of like 50-50 two different colors. So that's definitely not that big a deal, but the fact that Judgement is so conditional leads me to pick Extinction, both in the limited scenario where you're playing it in draft or in sealed, and in the constructed situation. Judgement does have more going for it. The race is definitely closer in Judgment's case as far as constructed goes. There's going to be more applications for it, and because it's more of a build around card, you're going to be able to control that building aspect. But still, Extinction's flexibility is pretty much the main reason that I'm picking it in both scenarios, limited and constructed. With all that said, that's the end of the what's the pick for today. But I do want to go back to the little contest Mocock and I were doing. Man, it's crazy the number of submissions we've gotten so far. Some of them are absolutely mind-blowing stuff I never even thought about. And I'm getting a ton of enjoyment out of just reading everybody's submissions and stuff like that. So if you guys haven't done that yet, if you haven't seen either of our videos, go back, check out Mocock's video, check out mine. They're on both of our channels, and if you want to enter the contest, you'll have a chance to win a few packs. Check them out. I think we're saying the contest ends on August 1st, so yeah, you still got time. Yeah, less fail, more function.